welcome to another episode of the UX Our Minds podcast. And today it's a bit of a different episode, not really focusing on UX design, UX research specifically, but I've got someone on that I'm sure you all know very well. That's Felix Lee, co-founder of the ADPList. And today we're just focusing really mainly on mentorship and maybe if you're struggling, doubts, you're struggling maybe to enter the field, you don't know where to focus, just generally need a confidence booster. And today that's the main aim of this podcast. So I really enjoyed interviewing Felix and just chatting to him about his experiences and his challenges that he had to overcome in setting up ADPList, for example. And yeah, so sit back, enjoy, and let's get into the interview. Okay, so I'd like to welcome Felix to the episode today. I'm sure you all know who he is, but I'll allow him the platform to kind of give a bit of background and kind of just explain his experiences kind of leading up to where he is now. So go ahead, Felix. And again, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Dale, for having me. Hi, everyone. My name is Felix, and I'm the co-founder and CEO here at ADPList. At ADPList, our mission is to democratize mentorship for all. We really believed a world where, everyone can have a fair start in their lives, or rather in their career. And we've always believed that, we're born and raised in circumstances that we do not choose. And so the best thing that we can do for the next generation is to create almost an equal starting line by giving them the opportunities, and most importantly, the mentorship network as well, for them to be able to learn. And that's really what we do at ADPList, which is to bring that access and open up that access for everyone, for billions of lives around the world, hopefully. And so I've been working for ADPList for the past 3 years. Before that, I was a designer, and I spent about the past 6 to 7 years designing products for startups, consulting for startups as well. So that's been a huge part of my life. Before that, I played sports. Obviously, a big part of my childhood as well was all about sporting. So, just a very competitive person in nature. So that's a little bit about myself, and excited to be here, Dale.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Thank you. Out of curiosity, which sport did you used to play?
Well, so I used to do speed skating. So, and I was part of the national team. So
really?
I competed on some international stage as well with the team Singapore here in Singapore. Yeah.
Wow, that's really cool. So successful in your career, but also successful in sport.
I think it's obviously been a privilege to be able to represent the country.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's really cool. And just thinking, obviously, like I'm sure everyone who's listening now knows about ADPList. Early on in my career, when I was kind of looking at getting into UX, that was also a platform that was kind of just starting, and I used it as well. And it really helped me to kind of connect with like-minded people, but also connect with leaders, with UX leaders. I could kind of tap into their knowledge and get a bit of mentorship, which was really useful. For you, what? Because obviously you said before you were a design lead. So how did that opportunity arise for you to kind of start getting in, kind of setting up the ADPList? Was it through personal experience or just kind of a passion that you had to help other people?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Neil.
No problem.
Really, ADPList has a really unexpected founding story. So, in 2020, when COVID happened, I actually had just graduated from military. So that means that I've spent the past 2 years, 2018 to 2020, in a military as a medical combat sergeant.
Okay.
And so when I came out, I actually had a job offer in a startup called GoTrade. And so I joined them first as a design lead. So I spent about maybe 6 to 9 months there. And obviously that was during pandemic as well. And I was, I never been to college. So a lot of my friends were in college and I had already started working. And I felt like, when the pandemic had happened, a lot of people were just lost in lives or just, getting laid off.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I really could I think resonate and ask myself was, COVID is the greatest crisis probably in recent times.
Mm.
And it is a crisis that is not just happening to one person or a country or a region. It's happening around the world.
Mm.
And so, when we call ourselves designers, we always say that we're problem solvers.
Yeah.
And I don't want that to be lost in translation, because when it means to solve a problem, and what it means to solve a problem is that when you see a problem that is affecting lives, hopefully you try to solve it. And so when the pandemic happened, I really asked myself, a couple of months into pandemic, I really asked myself that, if I walked out of this pandemic without actually solving a problem, would I be able to say that I'm a problem solver? Because I think it would be pretty hypocritical to say that I'm a problem solver when I did not try to solve a problem in the world's greatest crisis. And so I dabbled around a few ideas, contact tracing, just trying to build some websites to help, small businesses, so on and so forth. But none of them really, I think, resonated with me. And so when I saw that a lot of my designer friends were just getting laid off and not getting the jobs that they wanted, I felt like there was something deeper that was really that they needed support and help, particularly mentorship during this time, so that they could get to a better place in their lives. And so, because you can't guarantee someone a job, but I think you can guarantee someone a great conversation. You can guarantee someone like, hey, you should meet that person. Maybe they might be able to help you.
Yeah.
And so I created this simple Google spreadsheet that basically put names in there and say, if you're looking for a job, you could put your names in there. Or if you're not looking for a job, but you're looking to help someone, you could also put your names in there as a mentor. And so, I just put it out on LinkedIn and on Twitter. And a couple of weeks in, I saw thousands of names inside. Thousands of people that were looking for jobs, thousands of people that were ready, like hundreds of people that were ready to help someone else. And to be honest, these names come from everywhere around the world. And so I felt like there was something universal here. And I followed through that project all the way until early 2021. So I spent about 6 months on that as a side project. And then my ex-boss came to me and he said, look, Felix, I know you've been working on this side project. It seems to be taking off because of what I've seeing on the social media. Now, I want you to make a choice. If you want to stay in the company, you got to stop doing this side project. Now, if you want to do this side project, you got to resign. And so I was sort of like at this crossroads. I'm like, wow, I'm 23, I think, at that year, I was 23. And, I had not had an official job and I've never been to college. And so, for me, this job almost was like, where I started. And so I was pretty reluctant to actually leave because I had no savings as a young, young guy. And so I called a good friend of mine, and his later became one of the ADPList investors. He became the first investors. And I said, what should I do? And he said, why not just leave your job? And I said, dude, I have no savings. But long story short, I took about maybe 3 days to think about that decision, and I decided to eventually quit my job and do ADPList full time in the early of 2021, and that's when we registered the company. The big reason was, first, I was born in a lower income and working class family here in Singapore, and so I felt that there was so much things that could be done for people like myself. And I know that my situation is not unique. I know of friends, I know of people around the world who are in the same situation, but they're extremely smart, they're extremely hardworking. They just need the opportunity to be able to rise up. And so I felt that when I leave my job, this was the one thing that I was going for, was that I wanted to create that level of opportunity and access for everyone else. That's the first thing. Now, the second thing was that a lot of companies coming out from Asia are just only in Asia, right? They are just always only serving the Asia market. And I had this thinking. I said, look, why is WhatsApp, why is Instagram, all these big companies, why are they all from America? So I said this. I said, look, The second thing, the reason why I left my job is because I'm seeing a lot of international people on ADPList, and I want to say that this could potentially be the first consumer internet company that has global success but comes out from the US. And I think that to me is a message that I hope to create through my work at ADPList as well. So those are the reasons why that is a founding story of ADPList.
Wow, that's cool. That's cool. It's like obviously I've seen your stories on LinkedIn, and kind of obviously you've shared these experiences, but it's also nice to hear it directly from you, and kind of the thought process as well behind kind of choosing that path. And obviously you made some difficult decisions as well, especially like with like leaving your job at such an early stage as well, because obviously at that point in time, obviously you've got your doubts and your worries, like is it going to go well, is it going to be successful? But in the end it has been. So I'm really happy for you, and also it's been a platform that I know has helped me, but also has helped many of my friends. So obviously you've achieved your goals, so that's good. Maybe because obviously you've mentioned a few challenges that you've faced, what has been the biggest challenge in your career? So it doesn't necessarily have to be related to ADPList, could be even something early on in your career, but that biggest challenge that you overcame, or that you're proud that you overcame.
Well, it's always a tough question when it talks about the biggest challenge, because I think every day we're faced with very unique challenge.
Yeah.
You know, if I could really kind of like squeeze in the past 7 years, I think the biggest challenge is to always have to fight your own doubts, your own fears, and your own beliefs. Because, you know, I grew up, I think I spent a lot of time with my grandparents, and they came from a totally different generation. And I think there is one thing about that generation, if anything, that this generation, all of us can learn, is that the world doesn't owe us a living.
No.
The world doesn't owe us a living. And because I think, look, there's so many things around the world that is happening right now. And I think people of my generation, we kind of like fall back on the excuses. You know, we're like, you know, I'm burnt out, I'm tired, let me just take a break. But our grandparents' generation, they did not do that. They show up in the farm, they show up in the shop, they're like, I'm going to hustle for a few pennies, because they have family and siblings to feed. That is the kind of spirit that I think we have somehow lost along the way, because the society has become more developed. And so I say that the greatest challenge is to fight your own beliefs and your own doubts, is because those things can sometimes become an excuse for you not to do. It becomes an excuse for you to think that, you know, you could just leave it to someone else, or you could maybe procrastinate a little bit or whatnot. And I think that is something very dangerous, because the smartest people that I've known and met with, had the privilege to be around, they think, but they think very little, and they do a lot more. And you know, when you think about that, I think, you know, it's sort of like, you know, really fighting against your own doubts, your own fears and everything, and just say, I'm going to show up today. And I think that has always been the biggest challenge, because I think there are always days and weeks like that where you feel like you're ready to tap out. The question is, are you though? Are you really ready to tap out? And I think when every single day just waking up and say that I'm not going to negotiate with my doubts, with my fears, with this self-imposed belief, then I think then you have overcome that challenge. And I think that is the biggest one.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think that's really good for our listeners as well, because obviously this podcast is targeting people at the start of their career, or people that are thinking about entering a design or UX researcher field. So that's something that I had to battle with, and I'm sure every listener has to battle with, like these self-doubts. I woke up many mornings during my transition over, when I was doing my career transition, like, can I do this? Am I good enough? After like the 50th rejection email, like, is this really for me? But I think if you overcome those doubts and you keep pushing forward, eventually, if you put your mind to it, it's a cliche saying, but it's true. Like, if you do put your mind to something, if you do really want something, you can do it. And it just takes that maybe a bit extra effort. The journey is not the same for everyone. Maybe it will come a bit easier, a bit quicker to someone, but that doesn't mean it's not going to come to you eventually, that goal that you have. So it's nice also to hear it from you as well. Maybe just also focusing on kind of now on the listeners, and maybe I know we have a few listeners that are from kind of various fields or kind of moving into various fields, like whether that be UX or product design or research. So from your point of view and from maybe your mentoring, what would you say is not the most important thing to focus on, but what should someone just starting out thinking about getting into one of these fields, what should they focus on? Should it be learning these like just raw skills? Should it be your portfolio? Should it be interview skills? What do you think should be your focus?
There are a few really important skills and tools and skill sets that someone should actually really have before they think about, becoming a great designer or being great in this field, and when they're starting out.
Mm-hmm.
The first set of skills that you should begin learning is beginning how to tell a story. Because learning how to tell a story goes into your portfolio, it goes into your case studies, it goes into your interview, and it goes into really just how you present yourself to the world. And I think that is probably one of the most important skills that no one really talks about. That's so true. Learning how to tell a story that gets people hooked, gets people invested in you, I think that's always important, because you will then tell people why you should, have a vote of confidence in me to hire me or to get me inside a program or whatnot. So storytelling is the number one skill, and I would recommend, just reading up. There's this blog that we recently wrote, in fact last night, about about storytelling, and it's really learning from Pixar, right? Pixar is one of the best storytellers on the planet today. Yeah. And Disney is obviously one that has probably 100 years of experience of telling a great story. So learning from that, and I'll send you the article in the chat as well, so everyone can take a look.
That would be great.
So storytelling is the number one skill. The second thing that you really need to master, and I feel that you really need to have, is understand how your craft, so whether it be design or whatever that you're working on, how your craft can actually produce results for the business. So business spend tons of money hiring their employees and whatnot. The last thing that you want them to have on their mind is, are they actually worth hiring? Because a lot of people think that I just got to make great UI, I just got to make great UX, and that's about it. But it's not really the end of the story.
That's true.
Because when you get into the company, you have to be able to show that you're making an impact to the business metrics. And so you have to be really clear as a designer how you're going to make those metrics happen. I think there has been in a way, I would say it's a very toxic culture and a mentality. And in many ways, if it's just me, maybe it's just me, but I would say that Facebook has a lot of blame to this toxic culture mentality, because of how Facebook has continuously breached trust among its users around the world. People feel like if I design for a business, it is bad. Because they might end up like Facebook. Right? Like, if I make people scroll endlessly on my app, I might become like Facebook, because then people are addicted to it. Right? Or if I collect too much data, I might become like Facebook. So, but it is a huge problem to think like that, because not every company and not every executives are like Facebook, basically. And so we have to be very careful of the examples that we look at. That we shouldn't play bias to say, oh, okay, I'm just going to design for the users and that's about it. No. I think we should understand that when your job as a designer is to be able to, yes, first design for your customers, but you also need to understand that the business needs to pay its bills. So you have to add up to that equation. Because otherwise you're just going to lose your job at the end of the day. I think that is a problem with a lot of designers in these recent times. I think they buy into that whole ideology that if I design for my users, I'm a manipulative designer. I am a dark UX person. I don't believe in that. I mean,
No.
there are designers like that. But if you think so binary, I think there's a huge problem. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's an interesting view as well. No, it's because sometimes you might get so kind of focused on, oh, my portfolio needs to be perfect. I'm missing this skill will help me get that job. But yeah, it is good also to focus on kind of your storytelling and being able to sell that also in the interview. And that way as well, yeah, learning how to meet business goals as well, because business goals, like you mentioned there, you'll lose your job, but maybe not because you're not a good designer or you're not a good researcher or whatever, but because you've not been able to help the business reach its goals. And if it does reach its goals, the business will be successful, and obviously you'll hopefully continue in that ride with the business. So that's really interesting comment, and maybe we'll end here because I don't want to I don't want to take all of your time, because I know you're a very busy man. But I really appreciate you coming on and taking this 25 minutes with me this morning and afternoon your time. So I appreciate it.
Of course, Dale, and a lot of amazing contents over the past 25 minutes. So thank you for having me here.
No problem at all. And yeah, if obviously to all the listeners, if you're not already using ADPList or you're not already following Felix, go and do that on LinkedIn, and I'm sure you'll have a wonderful experience using ADPList, because I certainly have. So thank you. Again, I'd like to thank you, Felix, for joining us today on the podcast and just giving a few insights into his experiences, especially in setting up ADPList and the challenges that he faced. And hopefully that information can help you, you listeners, in the challenges that you're facing in maybe breaking into the UX field or looking for your first UX job. So thank you again to Felix. Remember, like, subscribe, follow this podcast wherever you follow and listen to your podcasts, and stay tuned for the next episode, which will be out very soon.